I think what the public is now learning about Elizabeth Edwards is the truth about all of us. We are complicated, not easy to categorize. Imagine for Elizabeth Edwards learning that this cancer she thought was gone but was only dormant is back. And at the same time, there'd been an insidious assault on her marriage going on. This new side we're seeing of her is that of a strong, smart woman who was very angry.
It's the sort of melodramatic, harrowing, almost tragic tale that even a publisher of fiction would reject as simply implausible. And the heroine, increasingly hard to define. Elizabeth Edwards has gone from victim to saint to an angry, sometimes biting wife.
Angry and hurt and a lot of self-doubt about, who I was, what I meant to him, all of those things that I think women in my position go through.
It's a long journey from the adored every woman next door who captivated Washington on her arrival.
I've been a waitress. I love the waitress. Okay.
The close couple bound by an earlier tragedy, the loss of their teenage son, Wade, in a car crash.
I've described it as sort of, this BC AD moment. Everything exists before that time and after that time.
But buoyed by their daughter and 2 more children late in life, their resilient family charmed the nation on the Kerry ticket. And then, just after the 2004 loss, a devastating discovery: breast cancer. And when it came back years later, they still seemed rock solid.
I'm immensely proud of John's campaign.
But behind the scenes, Elizabeth was dealing with the slow leakage of ugly truth.
What John had said is this woman had spotted him in the hotel and said to him, "You are so hot, I can't deliver it," because I don't know how you deliver such a line as that.
I think she probably said it a little differently.
You think so?
In the new book, Game Change, about the 2008 campaign, the authors paint a picture of a woman in utter, frenzied, and angry despair as she learned her husband may have fathered a child with another woman. Elizabeth Edwards would often call her husband a hick and his parents rednecks, the authors write, and she let John know she viewed him as her intellectual inferior. The fighting was constant. Staffers say they often felt like battered spouses, even as Elizabeth Edwards looked for proof her husband was telling the truth that he wasn't the father. The behavior completely natural for her at that moment.
Well, there's a terrible internal conflict in somebody in Elizabeth Edwards' position. She hates her husband for what he's doing to her, and she desperately needs him because she's dying. Behind anger and denial, that consuming, is usually fear. And fear, a devouring fear. I mean, Elizabeth Edwards is afraid of dying alone.
The current chapter of the story seems a search for closure. John Edwards finally stating the obvious: the baby is his.
John feels relieved that this is behind him. I'm pretty sure our whole family feels relieved.
I think they are both fatally damaged emotionally about this. Who wouldn't be? And it's going to go on. This story and this torture will go on and on and on.
Indeed, Edwards has talked openly about her struggle to and desire to forgive.
This is a really good man, who really, who did a very, very bad thing. I have a husband who adores me, who is unbelievable with my children, who's provided for us in ways we never could have imagined, and who has, in times when I've been in enormous pain, with the death of Wade or with the cancer, has been by my side.
The final chapter will be waiting.
And George, right now the couple are reportedly living apart in North Carolina, but Elizabeth Edwards suggested yesterday maybe the public would let them focus on their marriage and peace.
We'll see. Claire, I was struck by what Gail Sheehy said in your piece, saying they're both fatally damaged. But Elizabeth Edwards, as a defender in the Washington Post this morning, one of her former staffers, Jen Palmieri, draws quite a different conclusion. She says that when she spoke with her this week, I thought for the first time in 3 years, the old Elizabeth seemed to be back. She was grounded, funny, maybe even happy.
I think that's right. I was struck by that piece, too. She said, George, Elizabeth would be the first to tell you she's opinionated, unyielding, blunt, unwilling to suffer fools. Saint Elizabeth, she is not, but she is that kind of drop everything to be there for you girlfriend, one of the warmest people she knows. I think what the staffers say is, look, this was a one-dimensional portrait in that book, George.
And we're all a lot more complicated than that. Claire Shipman, thanks very much. We want to hear your thoughts on Elizabeth Edwards, so weigh in on our shout-out board at abcnews.com.